This is the January 3 prototype build of Burning Rangers. We are going to look at Mission 2 here and how it differs from the final release. You can see there's no title card for Silent Blue in this one. None of the missions have any title cards in this build. And of course we see the positioning information on the screen on the right. This initial hallway is pretty similar to the final. There's supposed to be a backdraft here, and in some variants of the map, these shutters are open, but in the original map in the final release, they are closed, as in here. You'll notice the timer is counting down from 10 minutes, and that's something that's different in the final as well. Swimming is a bit different here. You cannot jet upward. You can only float upward, which makes it a little bit tedious. It is faster and feels better in the final version. And the final version does not have blue flames in this hallway. Some variants of the map have that shutter open, but not the original one. The blue flames are also a little bit less generous with the crystals than they are in the final version. One of my favorite things about this version of Mission 2 is Claris and Elliot from Nights into Dreams are here, and they have different models from what appear in the final game. See, this is kind of a mock-up version of Claris. The final game uses her model from Nights into Dreams. And also the final version requires you to have Christmas Nights save data to make Claris appear, and even if you do, it's fairly rare for her to show up in the level. Nights requires save data from the main game, Nights into Dreams. This section is similar to what you see in the final release, that bit with the crawling through the window there. It's very similar. There's some more flames in this hallway in the final release. This room here is one where everything just explodes when you go in. It's a little more aggressive in this version than it is in the final. And there's a couple of rooms like that in this release. And in the final release, rather. That shutter is open in some variants of the Mission 1 map, but not in the original. And it takes you to that hallway right here. Here's the dolphin. It moves around a little bit differently in this version of the game, but this sequence is fairly similar to what you see in the release. This hallway here does not have pink flames in the final version, and in the trial version of the game, if you hack into Mission 2, you have a robot right here. There's some backdrafts in that section as well. And here we're going to encounter Elliot from Nights. You can see he is using a different model from the final as well. This is sort of a knockoff, off-brand version of Elliot. I think those crystals are green in the final release as well. There's not a survivor there in the final release either. This section is about the same. After you do this switch, there are flames that erupt back in the dolphin room. And I think the purpose of those is to show you where to go. These happen in the final release. Now there's a hidden room back here that in the final release you have to activate a switch over in this other hallway. But here it's just open after you do the fix the dolphin tank. This is Fumi Kumatani. She's a member of Sonic Team. They misspell her name here as Fumi, which is an easy thing to do when you are translating from Japanese. They fixed that in the final release, and she appears at a different location in the final release as well. So there's supposed to be a switch in this section right here that opens that door, but in this version, that mechanic is gone. this little hidden area, same as it is in the final release. There are lots of crystals hidden in Mission 2. There's a survivor who tells you that something good might happen if you collect them all. But as far as we know, nothing actually does happen. There are green flames, there's a backdraft here in the final release. That section is laid out the same, but the objects are different. Second section of Mission 2 is fairly similar to what we see in the final release, but some things are a little bit different. Like the swimming here is, she's doing more of the wading animation in the final release, like the water's not quite as deep. You can see the 99 crystal limit is binding right here. I've got more than 99, but it doesn't count. They fixed that. I think there's a backdraft here in the final release. This is Sonia Morton, one of the survivors. She has a different animation in the final, and I think she's wearing different clothes as well. There's a survivor in this area of the map in both versions, although this guy, or this person rather, has a slightly different model in the final release. Marshall Weber does appear. This hallway with the robot is a little bit different in the final release. There's an effect once you knock down the robot for the final time that is not in the December 1 prototype, but it is in this one and in the final. One thing that is different here is the shutter here is open. It's not in the final release's original map. This takes you back to that area where we rescued Sonia Morton. This room is another one where it's just there to explode. That's in the final release, although it's a little less aggressive. And there's a green crystal here rather than a pink one. And you can see there's some sort of bug preventing me from proceeding here. I'm going to use the debug mode to get through. I'm in the dolphin statue room. In some versions of the final map, there's a survivor right here. Not right now. You can dive down and see into some of the hidden rooms here. This upper section has all green flames in the final release. There's a mix in this version. There's red, or orange rather, and blue here. And you have green over in the other corner. The blue flames really aren't worth it in this build of the game because they take a lot of shots to put out and still don't give you that many crystals. There are no green flames right here in the final release. So this hidden room with crystals is there. And in the original map, in the final release, there's a survivor down here. I didn't go into that room earlier with the fuel canisters, but you can see some crystals back there. This room, in the final release, the door is not locked once you go in here. they must have thought that that was too hard. The way you get out is to go through this part right there. So this robot section is as we expect. There's going to be a very minor difference here. I might be confusing my versions. This does look the same. In, I think, the trial version of the game, there's no green crystals there. You'll notice there are no crystals in front of this mandatory rescue here. They put those in the final game, so you'll always have 10 when you're picking him up. And behind him is a switch that is in the front of the room in the final release. I'm speeding through these cutscenes for the sake of time. That shutter here is a little bit bugged. You can see it's placed the wrong way. In the final release, there is a survivor right here. Don't have one. And there's a backdraft right there. It's missing. In this one, there's no switch, but in the final release you do have to activate one to get there. In some variants of the final map, this door to my left is open, but it's not there in the original map in the final release, and it's not there here either. That hallway is a little bit more aggressive with its backdraft. The final release has cool matrixy graphics going on here about the area we're in, but they're missing here, and it detracts from this cutscene a bit, I think. Shows and tells the story in the final release differ a little bit in that one of them plans to blow up the joint between the two sections of this building to make them float up, and it seems like a strange scheme, but they go with it anyway. There is a survivor here in the final version of the game, but in this one they are missing, and these green flames are not there in the final release. This is a hidden room. This is where Fumi Kumatani is supposed to show up in some variants of the final release Mission 2 map. Nobody's here in this one. And if we didn't get Claris earlier, she appears here, which I don't really understand how that works in this game. There's not a similar mechanic in the final. This is a really cool section. There are these rolling fuel canisters here, and you're meant to shoot them to stop them. These doors are not there in the final. And this section is supposed to be a little bit of a maze. I think you're supposed to find it difficult to see around that corner and try to make your way through here with these rolling canisters. You can see there's another one up here, which we can neutralize. There are some flames that erupt right here in the final release that aren't there in this one. And that flamethrower thing is a little bit more aggressive. You can see it got me. Use the debug to get into this room, which has a backdraft in the final release, but not in here. The explosions are from me hitting the 20% limit, not from triggering a backdraft. We're going to swim into the dolphin tank. In the December 1 prototype, you can get into the dolphin tank and then nothing happens and then you're stuck, but they have it working in this build of the game. This is a little bit different from the final release. They do some auto running here, and I don't think these crystals are there. If we use the debug, we can swim with this orca if we like. Let's get back to the mission. There is a survivor up here in the final release that's not there. This one. And you can see this collapsing floor section is a little bit different. Sho is supposed to be down there in the final release. You can hear him talking, but he's not there. And this little maze with the rooms here is a little bit different. In the final release, you can look through this door and see that there's a person there. If you go there, you're stuck, though. You can't come back and rescue the person that's behind this door. But there's nobody here in either of them in this build. So yeah, that room takes you right here, which is empty. And this one's a little bit different with the flames. There's some backdraft and different fire objects there. This robot appears in the final. One of those crystals is green. A minor difference there. This robot seems to stop in weird ways as well in this version of the game. In the December 1st prototype, there's a weird, glitchy version of a survivor right there, but they fixed that for this release. Now we're in the swimming section of the mission, which is a little bit annoying with the unfinished swimming controls. You can't jet upward, which makes this a lot more tedious, as I mentioned previously. This is pretty much as you remember it from the final, though. So we have to follow the dolphin. Up. Let's go, Sistils. This room with these crystals is there in the final release. There are some green crystals in the final release that are not there in this version. And we missed a dolphin animation that flips you up to this section. In the final release, this shutter here closes as soon as you go through, which is because if you don't go through it, you're stuck forever. And you can't get back up. You have to use the debug. And this section here, where you crawl through one of two bits, is not in the final. And after this section, this mission is empty. There's supposed to be a survivor in that room just there. There's supposed to be a bunch of flames in here. There are green flames in the final release. There's a switch here that opens the door to that room that we're looking at here. But this is just all empty. And I'm going to hit the limit here. This room is supposed to have crystals in it. Doesn't. It's supposed to be crystals, I think, in that hallway. There's supposed to be robots here. And one thing I wondered a long time ago as a kid was what was behind these doors. The answer is nothing. You can see all four of them here. There's supposed to be some green crystals here after you fight the robots. And then now we go down to the boss. So the boss in this version of the game is much harder, partly due to the swimming controls and partly due to the buggy nature of this. That running down to the boss is automatic in the final release. Here you have control of the character. I think you also get some crystals in the final release. Yeah, and you land on a platform rather than just falling directly into the water. So this is a lot harder, as I mentioned. We'll see if I can actually pull it off. I think when you hit this boss, yeah, he drops crystals. He does not do that in the final release. You can see his health bar is all wonky at the top there. Boss is clearly inspired by Dolpo from Nights into Dreams, but is different looking in some regard. I'm just filibustering to make up for the fact that it's very difficult to land a hit on this guy, and the missiles that he shoots out are tough to avoid when you're down in the water. And I might be in trouble now with no crystals. Oh, but I did pull it off. Wonderful. This cutscene is the same as it is in the final game. We're setting up the story for Mission 3. We do not get the cutscene where Tillis swims in to meet the other Rangers on a dolphin. Just go straight to the results screen. And this will be a little bit buggy as well. You can see that boss timing is wrong, and this replay is just all sorts of messed up. And no password, once again. This game does not have the password code in it. That was Mission 2. We'll do Mission 3 in another video.